Star Spangled Banner, please take a minute and greet your Rotarians next to you. Thank you, Audrey. Nice job. To lead us in the invocation today, Past President John Johnston.
Thank you, President Martin. Please bow your heads. Lord, we come to you today thankful, Lord. Thankful that we're able to gather in fellowship as Rotarians, Lord. Thankful that we're able to serve our community and our fellow man, Lord. Thankful that you give us the authority to do so. We pray for our state and our nation as we begin the political process to elect a new leader, Lord. And we pray that during this process, you test and battle harden our new leader, Lord. And as you prepare him or her to lead our nation, we pray that they surrender to you and lead us with integrity, character, and godliness. Pray that you bless this food, nourish body, and this thy service. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. All right, you may be seated. To welcome everyone today, Libby Gobert is heading to the podium. She's going to welcome visiting Rotarians and guests.
Good afternoon. We only have one visiting Rotarian noted, Butch Wallace with West Metro. Butch, I know I saw you come in. Where are you? Okay. Welcome, Butch. And now, if you have a guest with you, if you would stand and introduce your guest, if we could get someone to take the microphone around.
My name is Carrie Powers, and I have a guest with me today, Alana Jordan. She is with Big Eyed Bird Creative.
My name is Jerry Bright. I have two guests with me today. Cole McKinney, he's retired from the printing business, but he still makes A-model parts. Gerald Smith, who would like to join our Rotary.
I'm Jerry Smith, and today I have as my guest my future daughter-in-law, Christy Baer. She is with CNN out of New York, and I'm going to let her announce something.
Thanks, Jerry. Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me. Y'all, that's the only place I can get away with saying that in the state. So CNN is having a town hall Wednesday night and Thursday night in the great state of South Carolina. We're going to have all 6 candidates represented in both nights. So Wednesday is going to be in Greenville. Thursday is going to be here in Columbia at the USC Law Library. And my job is to get the candidates to say yes. They said yes. Now my next job is to get people who are in the community, registered voters, obviously, who are undecided in the Republican Party, who have questions for the candidates and want to be a part of it. So if this is something you're interested in, I'll be in the front afterwards, and I'd love to give you my information. It's from 8 to 11 both nights. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
I'm Dottie Park, and I have with me Thomas Ketchen, the General Manager of Dr. Dorothy Park and Associates.
I'm Adam Jordan, and my guest today is Blake Buchanan. He's the Director of Corporate Partnerships for the Columbia Fireflies. Put the sprint on.
I'm Steve Millette, and I have a guest today. This is Mike Adams from Colonial Life.
Welcome to everyone, and thank you very much. Thanks, Andrew, for sprinting across the room.
Okay, thank you, Libby. Welcome, everyone. I'll call forward Glenn Ward, who's going to handle this week's Health and Happiness Report.
Thank you, President Mark. A couple of items of good news. Dr. Jimmy Williamson was honored as the State Employee of the Year by the South Carolina Association of Regional Councils of Government recently. And I read a great article in last week's Columbia Star newspaper. Esquire Gene Rogers, our very own, has an impending autobiography, Semper Fidelis, Always Faithful in a Changing World. The article was great. It spoke of his humble beginnings on a farm down in Loris, South Carolina, and his accomplishments in life. So you may want to go back and take a look at that if you haven't already. On a sad note, last week, Kurt Johnston's mother-in-law and John Johnston's grandmother passed away. So let's continue to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Now, for a little bit of happiness, Congressman, it's great to have you with us today. And I guess by this time of the political process, it's not so much about dollars coming in, because most of the candidates have raised a lot of money, but it's really about endorsements, I would think. How would you like to go back to Illinois and somewhere on the way call Governor Bush and say, I have secured for you a fantastic endorsement from South Carolina? Would you enjoy it? Absolutely. Okay, how about one from the past? I'm talking about a big gun. One from the past. One that would really... 100%. All right. Senator Strom Thurmond would like to say,
it is my honor today to say that Governor Jeb Bush is a great person. I've known him a long time. I know his father, George Herbert Walker Bush, and served under him when he was president. His brother, former President George W. Bush. I know his mother, Barbara Bush, and the last time I hugged her, she smelled like perfume instead of liniment. So if anything happens to George Herbert Walker Bush, I'm planning on proposing marriage to her.
So we've got that secured. Now, if you'd like one from the other side of the aisle, I have one of those for you too. Fritz Hollings would say, well, now you know here Jeb Bush is bilingual. He speaks Spanish and English, and that's a good thing. I'm bilingual. I'm the first non-English speaking candidate we had for president. And speaking of New Hampshire last week, I went up there years ago to run for president. Nobody knew what I was saying, so a rat-a-tat-tat, the cat in the hat, the mouse in the house. I had to come back home and close the campaign down. So tell them, be careful with that bilingual stuff. You'll catch it. You know, the Bushes have this great connection to Florida, of course, and then to Kennebunkport, Maine, and also to Texas. So we have Senator Phil Graham from Texas would like to endorse him today as well. I want y'all to know that Jeb Bush is a man like me who does not quit. I don't quit anything. I failed 3 grades when I was in school, but I went on to earn a PhD in economics. Jeb Bush is like me. He does not fail. He does not quit. I failed the 3rd grade. I failed the 6th grade. I failed the 7th grade and the 9th grade. 3 grades. I failed 3 grades. Then the pundits are out, of course, those talking heads, Democrats and Republicans, both higher than big guns, come on television at night, tell us what we think we already know. James Carville. Mr. Carville, what do you think about what's going on?
this whole thing started a wall, and Bernie Sanders got in that race. Hillary had that thing won. The whole problem was he's like a little boy showed up at a birthday party unannounced, but he went up there to Iowa and New Hampshire won this thing. But we can take this thing all the way back to American people. She comes down here to South Carolina, it's going to work out in her favor, and she's going to get this whole thing wrapped up in no time flat. Whatever.
Then we have one more, and that's William F. Buckley Jr., who's no longer with us, but if he were here today, he would probably say it this way. First of all, let me simply say to this distinguished audience of Rotarians here today and our visiting congressman from Washington that it is grand to make the announcement that Governor Bush is dealing rather grandly with those who are buffeting him throughout the campaign trail with their metaphoric provocatives, and have summarily criticized him beyond reach and measure, and in an intrinsic way have placed him under the bus. But let me simply say to you that what a grand man he is, and he embraces the old adage which so wonderfully proclaims, not on the liberal side of the fence, if you give me a fish, I will eat for a day, but the conservative side of the fence that said, if you teach me to fish, I will eat for the rest of my life.
That was great. Well done. Thank you for sharing that this time of year. Thank you. A couple of announcements. I'll call forward Jesse Bullard to come up and update you all on a couple things that are heading our way. February 29th, I've mentioned to you, is it's going to be an exciting program. We're going to the USC Alumni Center. To tell you more about it, here's Jesse Bullard.
All right, thanks for letting me get up here before y'all. What a tough act to follow. That was almost as entertaining as the debate Saturday night. But no, we're excited. February 29th, the club is going to not be here at Seawell's, so please don't come to Seawell's for lunch because there will be none to be served, and you will be alone. Instead, we're going to be at the Alumni Center in the Vista. Most of you know where that is, but it is basically sandwiched between the Hilton Hotel and the Metropolitan Convention Center there, conveniently located right in the Vista. Many of you can walk from your work. Those of you who cannot walk, the parking garage that's adjacent to the building, the entrance is on the second floor. Many of you saw that when we had our social there. Real easy in and out, right there on the second floor. So just park there, come in the main entrance. Check-in will be in the pre-reception lobby right outside the ballroom, and Rotary, there'll be signage, but Rotary will be meeting there in Ballroom 3. Have an excellent lunch planned, and then of course a wonderful speaker with Dr. Pastides. So it promises to be a great meeting. Hope you will all be there, and for the Rotarians who are not here today, please pass the message along and be sure that we all go to the right place in 2 weeks. So if you have any questions, let me know. My company, Southern Way, has been heavily involved in that process, getting the Alumni Center open, and so kind of how the building works and the ins and outs of events there. I've got a little bit of experience with that thus far, and I look forward to many more events coming up. Specifically, this Rotary meeting should be really fun. So, thank you.
Yeah, more details to come. If you have a question and you're not sure where to park, grab me or Libby Gober, Jesse Bullard. We'll all be happy to tell you exactly where to park, where to enter that garage, and where to go to enter the My Carolina USC Alumni Center from the parking garage. And then conveniently, when you check in that day and you sign your name for attending the meeting, you'll be given a parking validation so you can leave without having to pay for parking. So looking forward to that. It's going to be a great program and an opportunity to go visit a top-notch and first-class venue that our city now has. So moving right along, I have Adam Jordan lined up to talk to you about membership, give you an idea how we're trending and how things are going. Adam.
Thank you, Mark. Mark asked me to give you an update on membership, but also speak a little bit about who we are as a club from my perspective as membership chair. As everyone knows, we're entering our 100th year at Rotary. We are the largest club in the district. We're a large club, but we're a club that supports each other in our time of need. And I can just share a personal anecdote. After the flood, I spent a lot of time at Walt Carton's house. I don't know if Walt's here, but you couldn't swing a broom without hitting a Rotarian in the head at Walt's. It's really a remarkable testament to how we take care of our own here at the Columbia Rotary. I did want to take a closer look at our club and its makeup. And so I spent several hours in the district database analyzing data. Actually, that's not true. I spent several hours trying to log into the district database. I spent 2 or 3 minutes looking at the data itself. But I want to share some demographic information with you that may be surprising to you. First of all, when you look at our club makeup, it's about 80-20 male-female. We actually have one person who's undefined in the club. There's a joke in there somewhere, but as long as we're videotaping, I'm not making that joke. But that balance is very similar to the district as a whole. I would say that's out of balance with the business community in Columbia, though. So maybe some implications for leadership to consider. We're broadly diversified across age groups with a gap in the 40 to 49 range, which is a little surprising to me. The largest group of service, which I have listed up here, is 26 years and above. What a testament to the long-term commitment of the members of this club. That's remarkable. Second largest is 0 to 1. So our membership seems to hit a wall in that 2 to 5 year time frame. Another implication maybe for our group and our board to think about. Let me take you back to a moment in time though, June 2013. Oil was $100 a barrel. It was $26 a barrel last week. Donald Trump was merely the host of a bad reality show. Hillary Clinton had just stepped down as Secretary of State and was furiously deleting her hard drive. Marco Rubio was already practicing his speeches for the presidential debates. And Bernie Sanders was the third most popular export from the state of Vermont after the band Fish and Ben & Jerry's ice cream. But that's also the last time we had 275 members in this club. Now let's look at the next slide if we can, Jack. So this is our long-term membership trends on the left-hand side. If you look back to January of 2010, we had 312 members in the Columbia Rotary Club. We took a meaningful decline over the next 4 years or so, down to 243, which was our low point. Since then, we have reversed the trajectory. On the right-hand side, you see our trajectory since November of 2014. We've gone from 243, and with next month's induction, we will exceed 275 members. That's pretty remarkable. On a more near-term basis, since June 30th of 2015, we are second in the district in terms of adding members. So that's great. We're second to the Moncks Corner Rotary Club. I don't know about you, I grew up with a great disdain for the Moncks Corner Rotary Club, and we will not rest until we're number one. But it is through your commitment that we have made such notable progress in this area. We have reversed this trend and we're headed in the right direction. So in conclusion, who are we? We're a club with a rich history. We're a club that has a rather remarkable base of long-term committed members, but also a lot of new blood. We're a club that takes care of those in need in this area and also those in need within our club. And I'm proud to say this club is also now a club that's growing. Thank you.
Great work, Adam. That's neat information. Thanks for sharing that with our club. It's encouraging, isn't it? I mean, to look and see that the trend has reversed itself. And I thank Adam for his leadership this year. I thank all of you for what you're doing to grow membership, invite guests. That's how we turn guests into members, obviously. So keep doing that, and it's an encouraging sign. So with that, we will move into the program. I'll ask Heather Smith to come forward to introduce the congressman.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is great pleasure for me to introduce Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He was first sworn into the United States House of Representatives in January 2011. He serves as the representative for the 16th Congressional District of Illinois and is a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. In addition, he served on the House Foreign Affairs Committee during the 113th Congress. Having served in the Air Force in both Iraq and Afghanistan, another priority of his is national security. He has always been a strong supporter of U.S. leadership in the Middle East and was among the first members of Congress to call for airstrikes against ISIS. He continues to focus on eradicating this threat overtaking that region. He's endorsed Governor Jeb Bush's presidential campaign last year and has traveled the country on his behalf. We are honored to have him here today to talk about his background, national security policy, and why he supports Governor Jeb Bush for president. Please welcome Congressman Adam Kinzinger.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. You guys have a good Rotary Club. Yeah. You get more people, right? All right, good. Well, thank you very much for having me. Let me just first off say, you have a way awesome congressman in Joe Wilson. I think you guys need to know that. And I know you know that here. I know you guys know that here, but sometimes, you wonder, okay, well, what's my congressman's kind of reputation back in Washington, D.C.? And he's got a fantastic reputation. I mean, I got to tell you, Joe Wilson is a statesman. Joe Wilson is somebody that's passionate and cares about his country, cares about the security of the country. And we had some good political impressions earlier. I can't do a Joe Wilson, but I want to work on it, where he just kind of comes up and he's like, hey Adam, hey, how you doing? Hey, nice to see you. Hey, listen to me. Hey, I got to talk to you about something. It's not very good, but he's a great guy, so you should be very proud of your congressman. So I guess I'm here to talk a little about myself, what's going around the world, and the Jeb Bush campaign. I actually was kind of surprised. I thought you guys invited me here to talk about how great Illinois does politics. Yeah, but I guess so. This is what I had prepared to say is just thrown out of the window now. And believe it or not, we actually do have Republicans in Illinois. So I'm not a unicorn. There's actually a few more of us out there. And so, one other quick thing. When I'm in Illinois, I jokingly say, and it's kind of sad that I have to say it, but Illinois hasn't had a budget for about a year now, and it's in a really bad position. We elected a Republican governor, actually. We have a Republican senator, and super majorities of Democrats in the House and Senate, so they're not even talking, not even working together. It's terrible, but the only good thing about that is actually it makes Washington, D.C. look highly functional. So when I travel around Illinois, they're very impressed by what we're doing in D.C. and how well we work together and everything else. So, hey, look, it really is a pleasure to be in South Carolina. I came down a couple days ago. I was in Greenville for the debate. I have a little 4-seat Mooney. I flew it down from Joliet. I left in 0-degree weather, landed, and everybody was bundled up at the airport. It was like 40, and I was ready to throw on the shorts, and walked around Greenville, went to the debate, flew here yesterday, did a CNN hit from here yesterday, and yay CNN, by the way, yeah. Did a CNN hit here from yesterday and was able to come and speak to you all. I want to kind of give you my thoughts a little bit on what happened at the debate. First, I want to tell you why I got into Congress. So it was 2009, and I'm in Iraq, actually, and I was based out of Balad. I fly the RC-26, a low-level reconnaissance plane. There's only 11 of them in the military, and it's just a great plane to fly with great folks and doing a great mission. And I remember I'm sitting there in March of '09, March to May, and President Obama had been elected, and there was this talk of spending $800 billion on a stimulus, just like that. There was talk of basically taking over the healthcare system, the idea of a cap and trade, which would bankrupt a lot of people on the energy sector. And so I really saw this kind of movement coming into place where I was worried and concerned about my country. I also knew that sitting there in Iraq and doing the missions we did, we were watching people and finding bad guys, we were in mop-up operations. The war in Iraq was basically won. But I remember hearing the rhetoric of, we got to get everybody out of Iraq. This was an illegal war, an illegal occupation, and it's time to basically go home with honor. And I remember being concerned because, as I'm flying over Iraq, as I'm interacting with the locals, the one thing you notice is they're happy. These are people, by the way, when you talk about events around the world, you talk about events in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and everything else, we have a tendency, and I do too, to kind of compartmentalize that as an us versus them. And when you think of them, like they don't look like us, they have different cultural beliefs, sometimes they have different religious beliefs, they don't speak the same language, and we sometimes forget that they are people, and there are children in these areas with the same hopes and dreams that our children have. A young kid in Syria, who gets shelled by the regime of Bashar al-Assad, or whose parents get taken away from ISIS. That kid wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, or to have kids and to raise a family of his own and hopefully buy a car someday and have a house. These are real people with real dreams. And these devastating events that are coming into their front yards and in their backyards and into their homes are having a real impact on real people. I actually believe, by the way, that God put the United States here for a reason. I believe that He located the United States and our great laws and our great country, not just to help us, not just so that we can have a nice life, but so that we can be that beacon of hope to other people around the world. I mean, you just think about where the world would be today without the calming, steady influence of the United States of America. So in 2009, I'm sitting in Iraq and come back, and my district had been won by a Democrat by 22%. She beat a well-funded Republican opponent who spent $5 million of his own money, and I decided I wanted to run for Congress. I decided I wanted to run for Congress not because I was hopelessly pessimistic about the future of this country. Because let me tell you, I actually enjoy flying airplanes way better than I enjoy being in the House of Representatives. I'm just being very realistic. Traveling's fun, seeing a lot of new people and coming to places like this is the fun part of the job. The not fun part of the job is the fighting, is reading what people say about you on the internet. I call them internet muscles, by the way, right? It's like beer muscles, but with the internet. And reading what people say and being part of kind of this darkness that's being stirred among our nation. That's not the fun part. But when I came back, I said, you know what? I think that our country is going to go through some very difficult times, but I want to be part of the inevitable optimism that comes out the other end. A couple hundred years of American history, we have never failed, ever. We've had failures. We've had times where we've gone through and things have not gone well and things have not gone right. We have stains on our history that we're ashamed of. You think of, slavery, and you think of things along that line. But at the end of the day, America always has gotten it right and always has come out the other end much more stronger than we went in. Think about the Great Depression in the 30s. I mean, it was a time when it looked like it was going to wipe out the whole economic system, and almost did. And what happened on the other end of it? The realization of the American dream. This idea that, you can graduate from high school and college and raise a family and be in the middle class and get a job and have a car and get an education. The American dream happened after some of the darkest times in our history. So I believed when I got into Congress that we were going to hit that moment. And I still do, by the way. But where I get really concerned is when I was at the debate the other day, and I hear some of the candidates, Donald Trump, for instance, when he says that he admires Vladimir Putin, a man who kills media opponents, a man who oppresses people, who illegally invades neighbors for power. He says he admires Vladimir Putin, and George W. Bush caused 9/11. I'm a Republican, and I understand that there's probably some not Republicans in this room, and there's among the Republicans there are probably people that have very different views of government and national defense and things along that line. But I think what we all can understand and believe is George W. Bush did not cause 9/11. George W. Bush did not put Saudis in an airplane to fly into buildings and knock them down and kill thousands of Americans for the worst terrorist attack ever on American soil. That is darkness that's being said. Politics, you have a tendency to kind of come to power or get followers one of two ways. One is by inspiring people, by showing them hope, showing them a way out, showing them a path forward, speaking to their inner soul that says, you know what, I want something better. And I believe you're the person that's going to help me to get to something better. Or you can come to power by taking that little insecurity that everybody has in their heart, pulling it out, exposing it to them, and stirring that into a bigger problem. When you stand up and you say to the American people that, folks that are here from a different country, even though illegally, and we have to do something about that, but when you call them bad people at heart, or when you say that women have things going on biologically and everything else, and you denigrate women in this country. Or you make fun of somebody that was born disabled, and you laugh about it at a rally. That's not somebody. That's not the kind of leadership that comes to power, in my estimation, and I don't intend to sit here and say I know more than any of you, I don't. But in my estimation, that's coming to power by stirring darkness, and stirring insecurity, and stirring fear. We've got a lot of big challenges in this country, we know that. We know that the economy is probably on the verge of another recession. We know that we've lost our position around the world, although we are still the most powerful country in the world, and every other country in the world knows that. But we know we've ceded ground to the Russians. We know we've lost territory to ISIS. We know brutal dictators continue to do what they do. And we know that China builds fake islands out in the South China Sea and calls it theirs. We know and we feel that that encroachment of powers that are not the United States is happening. We know that there's challenges, but let me tell you folks, at the end of the day, this is the greatest country in the world. I've traveled to a lot of crazy places. I've traveled to a lot of difficult places. I was in a nice little country called Yemen just a few years ago. Not a great place to buy a summer home if you're in the market. I wouldn't recommend Yemen. I was in a lot of tough places: Afghanistan, South Waziristan and Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, the border of Syria, refugee camps. Now, I was recently in a place called Kenya and a place called Ethiopia. And I got to tell you a quick story about Kenya. So USAID is a program that basically exports to people that are down and out for national security, economic development, and ideas. And I went to this little village, and they've never seen an American besides people that work for USAID, and we pull up in this stupid convoy, of course, like we always do when we're traveling. And I get out, and they're kind of shuffling me to this family, and all of a sudden the villagers start kind of looking at us and coming around. And then word hit that I was actually a congressman from the United States of America. And boom, they all come. And they're crowding around, and my security's trying to kind of push them back, and they're trying to do that kind of stuff. And I start looking, and I realize there's 200 people that are out to see me. And not because I'm awesome or anything, not because of who I am, but because of what I represent, because of the country I represent. These are people that had a cow, this family, they had 2 cows that produced something like 2 pints of milk a day, and that's what they had to use to feed their family. USAID, America, taught them how to grow a certain kind of, whatever cows eat, growth things, grass stuff, and I don't raise livestock, by the way. But they taught them how to grow this, how to feed the cow, how to take care of it, and it was producing now, each one, 10 pints of milk. That allowed them to feed their children, feed their family, and sell the excess to a co-op that the United States built for this entire town so that they could take the excess milk onto the open market and make money for the village to make things. That's what America represents. It's that hope. It's these people that came up and wanted to touch me because they want what we've been able to do in this country. But to listen to the politics today, you'd think we were the worst nation in the world. You would think we're on the verge of America just blowing up and going away and being in the history books as just a sad story that only lasted 250 years. Which takes me, frankly, to why I decided a year ago that I was going to support Jeb Bush. By the way, I was, I think, the first person to actually officially endorse Jeb Bush, and it was before he even announced he was running for president. I did that at a local paper, and my chief of staff called me and goes, and this is a quote, "Dude, did you just endorse Jeb Bush and he hasn't even announced?" I said, "Yep." He goes, "Well, you better announce, or you're going to look pretty stupid." He announced, and it was good. But what attracted me to Jeb at the time, and what's continued to attract me to his campaign and to his candidacy now, is look, there's battles in politics. Politics is a rough and tumble sport. There's calling out differences on records, talking about differences in viewpoints and things. That's all normal. That's never going to change and probably never should change. People want to know the differences in the candidates. But the difference, though, is, are you a candidate that's going to see people's anger? Rightfully so, people are angry. And you're going to reflect it back to them with a mirror. And they're going to reflect your anger back to you, and it's going to turn into this big angry mass. Or are you the kind of candidate that can look down and say, look, I know you're angry. Let me show you a path forward. Let me show you a way out. Let me show you a hopeful, optimistic future that we all can be part of again. And that was the message of Governor Bush. We all know about his record in Florida. We all know about his family. He has a fantastic, honorable family, a fantastic, honorable brother and father. We know that stuff. We know that he cut taxes in Florida. We know he did that without an income tax in Florida, by the way. We know that he reformed the education system with the first, second, and third voucher program, opposed by the teachers' unions, and they eventually came around and said this was the best thing to happen to Florida education, going from like number 49 or 50 on the list to the top 1 or 2. We know that he dealt with a multiple amount of hurricanes and did it as a leader should without passing blame on God or anybody else, but just standing up, taking the heat, and saying this is how we have to come through this in a calm and steady manner. We know about that stuff. But what I think we need to know more about, which he's talked about, and we need to ask the candidates about, is taking that record and leading to a successful future of this country. Now, I supported him before I really started even reading his plans. And as I started reading his plans, I realized this is a guy with the most detailed, actual plans to save this country. Talking about reforming the tax code, reforming Social Security so that those that need it now or are near needing it get the same system, but younger guys like me can live with something a little different to save the program from bankrupting the country and to save the country from being bankrupt and federal budgets. He's put out a detailed plan to defeat ISIS. I mean, this is an obligation. This is, as Christians, this is the stain of our time, to watch Christians being pushed out of the Middle East, being beheaded because of their beliefs, and knowing that this president is responding, frankly, with half-hearted measures. I believe President Obama wants to defeat ISIS. I really do. I just believe he's not willing to commit the level of force necessary to do it. You don't say we're not going to put boots on the ground in the Middle East. You say we will do what is necessary to defeat the cancer in the Middle East, and that may take boots on the ground. Hopefully not, but I'm willing to do it if that's necessary. Governor Bush has said that as well. He said that under his watch, ISIS will cease to exist. So I see in the governor a man that's not interested in stirring to the biggest insecurities of people. He's not interested in coming to power through fear. And maybe this is a year where fear power works. I don't know. I hope not. He's interested in being the inspirational leader that his humble father and his humble mother taught him that you should be as Americans. Somebody that puts an idea out, that puts an aspiration out. I don't remember this because I was 1 year old. 1979, Jimmy Carter was president of the United States, and the United States found itself in a very similar situation to today. We had left Vietnam. By the way, we had won Vietnam, and then we left Vietnam and lost it, similar to what we did in Iraq. Double-digit interest rates. There was an oil crisis. Russia was getting ready to invade Afghanistan. America really felt like it was a country in decline. We were going to go from great to good, and that's fine. Good's fine. We'll just have to accept it. We're comfortable. You know, I've got my car. I'm good to go. A guy named Ronald Reagan came along, and his temptation could have been to stand up and say, man, Jimmy Carter's awful. Jimmy Carter caused everything. Jimmy Carter's terrible. The country's terrible. Leaders are terrible. People are terrible. Everything stinks. I was a professional wrestler once. You know, that kind of stuff. By the way, did you know that Trump was a professional wrestler at one point? Look it up on YouTube. Anyway. So, he could have said all this stuff and maybe won. Maybe won. But instead, Ronald Reagan got this idea called a shining city on a hill and talked about people that live behind the Iron Curtain of communism. People that live behind, today, we have an Iron Curtain of poverty. We have an Iron Curtain of low expectations, an Iron Curtain of terrorism, of dictatorships, of violence. And he said people that live behind that, not just for ourselves. We want kids to graduate and provide for their family. But we want other countries in the world to look at us and say, if they did it, if a bunch of people that came from England and then came from other places later can be as successful as they are, that don't all look the same. In some cases, we don't all speak the same language, different accents, everything. If they can achieve whatever that dream that they had, that they're living now, maybe we can too. And again, I just believe that God put us here for a reason, and it's not just to make our life comfortable. Ronald Reagan won that election. He was reelected. We saw unbelievable prosperity in this country, not because Ronald Reagan was especially talented, but because he knew how to inspire and bring people together to do what needed to be done. And as he's given his farewell address to the nation in 1989, I'm paraphrasing, he says, "You know, I know I talked about a shining city on a hill, and I don't know if I quite adequately explained what I meant. But here's what I meant. I meant that kids can understand that they're going to have a bright future so they can raise families of their own. And I meant that America would stand as a light among dark to bring people to justice and to truth and to have freedoms." And he went on, and something happened while he was giving that speech. America realized, that from 1979 and his vision of a shining city on a hill to 1989, we achieved it. America was exactly what we could be, exactly what we should be, and exactly what Ronald Reagan proposed. And it was a great time. My concern, my endorsement of Jeb is because he was a fantastic governor, and he will be an amazing president, I promise you that. I have spent time with him alone in the car, and I can tell you his heart is not different when he's standing in front of different crowds. He doesn't say different things, and he doesn't say different things in the car that he doesn't in public. What you see is what you get. But let me appeal to the bigger sense. Regardless of whether you support Governor Bush, and I hope you do, let's not make the mistake of supporting somebody, whoever it is, that's going to further push people down to make himself look better. Somebody that's not going to further divide a country that has been more divided than it has been in decades. We are the best country in the world. And if you think about the group of guys that signed a Declaration of Independence that I believe all thought they were going to hang from a tree for their treason against the crown. And they hoped maybe that in 50 years this idea that they started might gain some traction. But we know that God gave favor, and we know we became independent. We think about the generations that responded to World War I, World War II, to Korea, the Forgotten War it's sometimes called, to Vietnam. And that Vietnam generation that came home to a population that didn't appreciate them. And then we think about the Desert Storm, the peacetime generation, the generation that fights with me in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the wars to come. The 18-year-old kid that today goes to the recruiting station in Columbia raises his right hand to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and he does it voluntarily because he knows that without him, this democracy will fail, even though he only has 18 years of knowledge and he's pretty young. We have generations willing to do that. It is arrogant of us to believe that the American dream of 200 years dies here now. It doesn't. It can't. And when you hear people stand in front of you and say it's all over, it's terrible, or everything's awful, tell them to shut up. Tell them to provide you a way out. Tell them to give you some hope. Because I don't need somebody that's going to exploit my insecurities. I need somebody that's going to say, you don't need to be insecure because you're an American. And lastly, and then I want to open it up for some questions. I remember I was in office about 6 months at the time, so it was like May of 2011. And I'm giving this guy a Purple Heart for he got wounded in Iraq. And I actually was his second Purple Heart. A little town called Morris, Illinois. It's like 10 miles west of where I live. You know, I'm going there and I'm getting my briefing, kind of reading what's going on, walk into this event, kind of pull him aside and talk to him, get a story. And he's like, yeah, I was wounded in Iraq, went to Germany, recovered, went back to Iraq and was wounded again and came home. He has 2 daughters. He's my age. He has 2 daughters, has a wife. And so you think about it. Goes to war, gets injured twice, comes back. He's getting his paycheck the rest of his life. He should. But mom and kids are looking at dad saying, and he's feeling, can I provide? Can I be what these kids need? Can I be what my wife needs? So I talked to him and I said, what's going through your mind? And I was talking to some of that, and he said, Congressman, I got to tell you a funny story. Because I said, look, by the way, and this is still true, I miss Iraq every day. And if you've never been in a war, you can't understand it, and I can't even begin to explain it to you. You don't miss the violence, but you just miss the people, the brotherhood, the mission, the clarity. He goes, Congressman, it's funny, I called the Army recruiter, or the Army, my contact the other day, and I told him, I said, you can have all of my ribbons. You can have my VA benefits. I'll sign on the dotted line. You don't owe me anything. You could have everything if you just let me go back for one more year. If you just let me go back for one more year. Now, why did he say that? He said that because he misses his friends that he left in Iraq. He says that because he probably feels like he doesn't have a sense of purpose right now. And he does that because despite 2 Purple Hearts, a family relying on him, and all this kind of stuff going on in his mind, he still feels like he hasn't given enough to his country yet. That's something you're only going to find in America, ladies and gentlemen. And so people stand in front of you and tell you that American dream and that America is over. Tell them to sit down. Because you live in the most fantastic country in the world. And I think, and Governor Bush, by the way, thinks, and he said this, that our greatest chapter of the American story is yet to be written. And it will happen very soon, if we believe it. I just want to say thank you, God bless you, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Sir.
Would you consider being the vice president?
Not for Trump. Look, I'm going to tell you, just in my life and in my career, my dad ran a homeless shelter. My mom's a public school teacher. I come from a fantastic German family in Illinois. I mean, not like 1850 Germans, not like real ones. And but the idea, by the way, that a guy that of average height, average intelligence, could represent 800,000 people is mind-blowing, and that's me. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why God saw fit for me to be here. And I don't know how long. And I don't know what's next, but all I know is I never could have planned this, so it's been a fun ride. Not as fun as flying airplanes. Sir?
What's it going to take to get our representatives in Congress talking to each other, legislating with each other, negotiating with each other, and making those positive things happen that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, we've got to, I don't want to, it's not a broken system, but it's a breaking down system right now. And the problem is, with the, media is great, but with the advent of some of the media on the internet, for instance, people, and I'm guilty of this, by the way, too. People, if you consider yourself a conservative, you only go to conservative websites now. You don't go to the opposition's websites, you don't really go to the, I say you generically, don't go to the kind of the mainstream news sources, you just go to the ones that cater to what you believe. If you're on the left, you go to the ones that cater to what you believe. Now, these websites all compete with each other for business, and they compete by creating stories that you click on. They call it clickbait. That's actually the media term. The more clicks they get, the more money they make. And so outrageous headlines are produced. So during the omnibus debate, which I voted for the omnibus bill, by the way, and I won't get into all the details. I actually think it was a decent bill for Republicans, but it wasn't perfect. It was good. It wasn't great. There were things I didn't like in it. But you go to some of those websites and it says, Ryan is a traitor. Paul Ryan, right? And so it creates this kind of internal fire of people that get angrier and angrier. And so then a representative is tempted in some cases to say, I'm worried about my reelection back home. And it's not easy to vote for compromises and to work together. I got to go back and kind of throw the darkest red meat out I can in order to win my primary. And so that's been happening. And it's been happening in a big way. The Constitution of the United States, which we all espouse to believe in, was a compromise. It was a compromise document between North and South, free states, slave states, between big states, little states, between people with different viewpoints. I mean, it's a compromise. And it was written to force compromise. Compromise isn't a bad word, I don't think. I think compromising your values is bad. But I think taking your values as far into the fight as you can and putting the stake down when you can't get any further is a good thing. So really the key is you guys. You have a great representative, so you don't have a lot of work to do there. But there are representatives that are too scared of re-election. Let me just say this real quick. I don't believe that a member of Congress who salutes a flag of a fallen soldier coming back from a battlefield, who says, and really believes, who says that it's fantastic that we have generations of people that are willing to sacrifice to keep us free, I don't think they have any right whatsoever to utter those lines and then vote based on what's going to save their career. Because this job, every vote I have taken ever, and I've made bad votes, I'm looking back, votes I regret, but every vote I have taken ever is what I think is right for the country and not right for my career. And it chagrins staff sometimes when they get worried, but it happens, so. We'll go back here, yes.
I think you ought to run for president. But how does Bush overcome the conflict that the country needs to move on by beyond Clinton and Bush?
Yeah.
That's a big hurdle that he has.
Oh, sure it is.
Let's get the country, that ain't moving the country forward in a lot of people's mind.
Yeah.
Let's get out of that and find somebody new with new ideas.
Well, yeah, I agree. I'll talk to what I would say to that, and then to the reality of that. What I would say is if there was another candidate in the race just as qualified as Jeb Bush, then vote for the other person. Because if you have dueling qualifications, then you can make that your decision. The problem is I don't think there's any other candidate near as qualified as Jeb Bush in this race. There's good candidates in this race. I'm not bashing everybody. But that is a challenge. Jeb was the first to say it. He talked about the fact that he has to brand himself as his own man. Embrace your family, embrace the tradition of your family, the fact that your family is loved, but show that you're your own man. And I think he's done that. And it's going to take longer for him to continue to do that. But people are beginning to learn his record in Florida. Took an actual purple state and made it very conservative in policy. Great success in Florida, and being able to take that and lead the country with that idea and with those plans. I mean, his plan to reform the VA is magic, honestly. And one of the first things is we ought to be able to fire people that work there. Can you believe that? 3 people have been fired in the Veterans Affairs Administration. 3! With all these scandals. He says heads are going to roll when I take over, as they should. There's great people there, but there are also people that are more interested in their paycheck than their job, than anything else. So, look, he's got work to do, obviously. I think he's in a better position than he was when he started running, but I think people have got to continue through this process, through South Carolina, through Nevada, through the next primary states. They'll learn his record internally and see that, in many ways, he's very different than his family and very successful. Yeah, back here, and then we'll go up here, sir.
You guys in Congress have really failed in the budgeting process. And the Bush family historically has been a big government, sort of free spending family business. My concern is you get a House that hasn't performed this fiduciary responsibility with the budget, and a Republican president who really doesn't have a whole lot of concern. I haven't heard him say anything about budget restraint. Make me a believer that that is something that I want to get involved in.
You haven't heard who say anything?
Governor Bush.
Oh my goodness. You got to go to his town halls. He talks about it a lot, and he's got some great plans on his website to actually go into detail. It's not, kind of platitudes about doing this and that. It's actual detail. It's giving people the ability to fire people. I mean, you look at the bureaucracy reforms he did in Florida, for instance, the free markets that he brought into place, not just because it saved the government money, because it made the delivery of services better. The mentally disabled, a judge was ready to take over that program. Governor Bush asked for a stay to allow him to reform it. This is right after the governor was elected in Florida, and absolutely turned that around in a very positive way, saved money. The federal or the state workforce of Florida ended up, I think, something like 10 or 15% less than it was when he took over, and was far more effective and higher in all those categories. But here's the big dirty secret. We can cut everything to the bone. We've kind of done that in the military, by the way. We can cut everything to the bone in what the House of Representatives can do. You're not going to touch this deficit. This deficit and this debt, and the day in which America falls off the fiscal cliff, is the exact same date, literally, with sequester and without sequester. It is the exact same date whether we make more spending cuts or whether we increase spending next year. Because it is all driven by Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and the ever-growing one is interest on the debt. We spent $300 billion in interest on our debt with record low interest rates, by the way. We could have had an amazing highway bill and built infrastructure with that money, or we could have cut into the deficit in a huge way. That's where we have to, the next president, and Jeb talks about Social Security reform every time he's at a town hall. Used to not be popular to do it. He has a very detailed plan for reforming Social Security, including delaying the retirement age, including actually bringing those that live in poverty to a higher level, but then you're going to have to do some means testing in Social Security, which most people understand will probably have to happen eventually. And then if you retire early, there's incentives to not retiring early, by the way. And if you're 65 and you're working still, you don't have to pay your part of the payroll tax anymore, because that's considered a benefit and an incentive to working past 65. So actuaries have looked at this and said that saves Social Security at least for the next 50 years. And so those are all the tough decisions we're going to have to make. You know, if we cut fraud, waste, and abuse and foreign aid, by the way, it's less than 1% of the federal budget. So, hey, with that, I just want to say to all of you, you live in an amazing state, by the way. I love South Carolina. So God bless you. Thank you for the opportunity to come and chat with you a little bit about Bush. I hope you would, if you're not planning to vote for Governor Bush, I hope you would take a second look. And if you are planning to vote, I hope you definitely go to the polls on Saturday. Thank you.
The congressman can stick around if you'd like to come shake his hand and ask him another question. He'll be right here down front. And if you'd all stand. Oh, check your email this week. We'll have an announcement about next Monday's program. So be on the lookout for that coming this week. And if you'd stand, we'll close by singing.